Tzeentch, the Lord of Change. Some say that the Warhammer universes are all connected in an unfathomably complicated cosmic ballet. The victories in one realm give power unto another. Defeat in one tips the scales in their mirror realms. As the universes twist and spin through time and space, there is but one force that connects them all, the warp. And in that realm exists an interdimensional schemer, a spider at the center of the web, a being that believes it is the conductor in this grand opera. The second most powerful of all the pantheon of the dark gods, Tzeentch, the Lord of Change. But herein, we shall discuss the deepest and darkest lie of the Warhammer setting, promulgated by its biggest liar. The world that was. It is cold. Plumes of white fog escape my mouth as I pant. My throat is hoarse, my lungs are fire. I snatch at air like a miser. They are gaining on me. Understandable, but still, not my optimal outcome. Hope for the best and plan for the worst, they say. Well, life was good, so lamentably. I always did more of the former. I hoped for the best. I ignored the slowly changing winds. I ignored the growing signs. Like a workhorse, I blinkered myself from what I knew would spook me if I eyed it dead on. And I lost track. So I lost everything. Everything. The winds rose, slowly by slowly, day by day, like a crab in water. I did not see the cauldron I was sitting in was slowly boiling over. And our village was in its center. We were the crab. I was one of the few. We hid it well in our line. Only the oldest families of the village knew the secret. Most thought it an old wife's tale, used by our lads to gain greater chances, and our ladies to scare their menfolk. But it was true. We could feel the winds. We knew much more than we let on. For it was a hated thing to know what we knew, to be who we were. Those who knew. We knew of the winds of magic. We knew of the ways to bend and form it. And we knew of the ways of the enemy. The dark ones. But it availed me naught. Nothing. 100 generations of accumulated knowledge, and it failed, or I did. Perhaps the fault was mine alone. As I said, I ignored the signs. The crops blighted, the stillborn calves, the stones that bled. The winds, they increased in their force the direction it blew. Forever it blew from the north, always the north. And I should have known, but I ignored it. I said each day, tomorrow, it will change, it will abate. It will blow anew from another cardinal. But it did not. So when they came, I was not ready. A thunderous crack resounded in the night. All awoke. We rushed outside. A small stockade of some 10 feet. They pushed it down. We did not even know of their advent. They had crept through the night. Such carnage, such horror. The forces of the grandfather, Nurgle. I saw men and women transformed into mushroom-spouting atrocities in seconds. Scabrous blades dripping bile that sickened all it touched. Animal, crop, tree or man. They butchered They were proof to the blades of our swords, ignorant to the need to die, even when skewered on pikes. I fled. I fled into my home. I barred the door and then backed away from it, lurking in the dark, stiff, childishly paralyzed, as if any movement might draw their attention. I even held my breath. Then it happened. I was not prepared. I shuddered as the door itself changed. It grew a ruddy face out of the knots of the oaken slab. A voice from the earth intoned jauntily, "You know they are coming through every door here. Noise or no. All." I stared at it in slack-jawed terror. "What will you do?" "What are you?" "Not what. Who?" it intoned. And I instantly knew. It can be from no other. My mind ablaze with instant potentials, instant fears, doubts, memories, second-hand terror. All swept away as it again spoke. "You have my attention for only so long." I knew. He offers me a pact, but because of who I am, he does not wish to be gauche. "Why now?" "You need me." "But why now? What can you do for me that is worth my soul, my damnation? What do you gain?" "Satisfaction. It is a puzzle. If you ask for that which you need, then you shall receive it. If you ask for that which you do not need, then my assistance will end." "Ah, I know thee. Your first answer hides the truth. You wish to use me as catsport against the worshippers of the grandfather. Do not deny it." Its eyes seemed to glitter. "I deny nothing. You are running out of time." "Then that is what I shall have. Time." "Beware, mortal. To us, time is an ocean. To your kind, it is a river. You would not do well to attempt to travel upstream to the source." "Then I shall have time from now, alone here. Freeze my home in time so I may ponder." The door then seemed to incline its knots to show it looked down and then up again. I shuffled slowly to the window, avoiding all light coming in that may show my movement. I peeked around the curtain, and there it was. The sack of my village in portrait. Nothing moved. I slowly took in the vista, elongating this moment, knowing that when I turned around, I would again be sparring with it. But I had to keep it entertained also, or I was dead. As dead as my village. It was too late. There could be nothing now but revenge. I backed away from the window and looked at the face in the door. At it. "What now?" it purred at me. "I have a question about the terms. You gain my devotion as a given. You are entertained if I am smart enough. But how far can I ask?" "Astute. You can imagine my largesse to match an amount. You would then describe how much of my gift you wish to use on any one thing. For fairness, you should know that if you ask for this place to be cut totally from time, you would overstep your mark. I would leave insulted. But if you ask for as far as an extension as possible, then you would gain centuries at the least. Then you will simply vanish when all of your gift is used? That depends on the spectacle. Entertain me." I give a small incline of my head, then twist and pace. I think. My training is such that it is possible at all. But I am in it now. I must play to win. Only if you trick the trickster will he give you your due. I must be clever. Ish. as far as I am able. I am no college mage. I am but a knower of things. What does he want? Why? What can I get from this? I stop and turn on it. Stock still, I take the final step. I have my requests. Excellent. I practically gave you the first one, so try not to disappoint me. I wish for a magnification of my power, but I then hold up a finger. And 1 year here. No need of food or sleep or any bodily functions. The old oak face shifted into the beginnings of a sneer. Got him, thinks I. Nothing else? A polite chat about it afterwards before you go. Answer 3 questions, eh? The knots moved again, twisting into a more quizzical look, but it seemed to shift back into a normal door again. It then slammed open and near off its hinges. A rush of wind slammed into the room, as a gust of wind forced itself into the room. But instead of taking me off my feet and into the wall, I rise as it surrounded me and tears through me, leaving traces of itself behind. I was held up and buffeted by the winds for what felt like hours. Finally, I was gently deposited back onto the ground, my feet stepping onto the rushes, and my eyes blazing with an eldritch lambent glow. I was changed. I could feel the winds of magic suffuse me. I could feel their eddies, their slightest change of speed or direction. The door slammed shut again. I know you are still here. I slowly sat cross-legged on the floor and looked at the now blank wooden door. So, my first question in our little chat. Why were you disappointed in my choices? A wind blew, and a whisper caressed my inner ear. Power is a tool, not a destination. Of course I know this, but it was necessary for us to have this little chat. The door knots now emerge again. A face appears, but it is now non-human. A hawk, I believe, but its eyes say it all. They sparkle again. My second question. You wish to use me as a catsport against the followers of your rival, the infested ones. You think my abilities enhanced by your gifts can gain this result here? Their destruction? I did, and more. But now, well, you have but one question remaining. It had better be good. I nodded solemnly, a statement before my question. Our goals collide. This is the reason for your arrival, your gifts. But you waited until I had nothing left to save, so hoping my dreams would be small and myopic, the lesser rather than the greater. You had hoped to play me short, to fall upon the bandits and horrors of your enemy, then wither, spent. You took from me my choices, so I shall reclaim them. I now have the power. Your investment is clear, the vessel now worthy, and I have a year. So, my third question. Tell me how to use my newfound power to destroy all of the forces of Nurgle. The door went flat and began to violently rattle on its hinges. Then it burst out, and then turned to smoke, then formed into a being in front of me. A scribe in form, cowled so its face was hidden in shadows, but its eyes were dimly lit in the midst of the obfuscation. Its grin barely visible as only its chin came out, the movement more indication of the action than vision. It also seemed to blur in and out of reality, as if a reflection of a candlelight in a breeze. Touché. You do not think small. I like that. So, let us begin And so he did. It taught me what I needed to know from the ground up. The very basics, the nature of power, its flow, its ebb, its basis and its nature. It taught me hexes, spells, curses, circles, charms, incantations and alchemy. The ever-transient nature of matter, of one who harnesses the steel of the ephemeral, thought and will. I knew the names of things, their core resonance, how to twist their strands connected to the winds of magic, how to change reality, and eventually, how to destroy the muttering blubber mounds of his enemy, their arch-sorcerers, their mightiest princes. And when we were done, on the day that the bubble went down and time crashed back into my universe, I unleashed a full year of pent-up rage, mourning, study, horror and grief. And of course, hate. I made the land into mud and the air into knives. I shattered their spines and twisted them inside out at a flick of my wrist and a softly spoken word in a language that cannot exist. I cleansed their muck and contained their explosions as I popped one after another of them. I purged them all individually, and at the end, wreathed in power, I extended my wings by showing my might to mine foe. I cleansed the entire area of their filth. Displaying the previous butchery was only for my joy. My plan long hatched. My revenge. But as always, he who laughs last, laughs longest. I thought myself so clever then. You see, I had cleansed the region, and upon this, I found that all of my mystic might was so honed as to only apply to them. Against the forces of the grandfather, I was a scourge. To all else, nothing. And I had cleansed the region. But that meant I was the sole survivor of a massacre. A survivor with a murmured past. Few knew. But after marriages, they were not only of our village, after so long. Word travelled quickly. And I fled. And now I pant. My lungs snatch at air. I have been running for so long. I am so hungry and tired. But the hounds of the Witchfinder get closer by the hour. I am unfit. I always hoped for the best. But the demon of Tzeentch now lasts longest. For a witch hunter is not of Nurgle, so to him I am a fat scribe who will burn just right. Welcome, gentle listener, I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the important forces, factions, and entities of the Warhammer 40k universe, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. Now, before we become too advanced in this video, please be aware that this is a continuation from my introductions to the Dark Gods Khorne and Grandfather Nurgle. So do try to catch them first, if at all possible. Although I endeavour to make each entry self-contained, there are only so many times I can cover the origins of the gods and the dawn of the Warhammer universe before I feel like a talking clock. So, let us be swifter in this entry. But fear not, I hope to make this a fun ride, so to put it, for we have lingering in the distance what I refer to as the greatest lie in all of the Warhammer setting. And it is quite a doozy. But do please remember that this is the barest of snapshots. Like all of my work, we barely scratch the surface of the incredibly rich and deep lore. It is merely an introduction, an aperitif to induce you, the gentle listener, to then explore the topics for yourself in much more detail, if you are so enticed to do. Now, let us take our lamps and gird our loins, and delve into one of the darkest places in the Warhammer setting. Let us speak of the Lord of Change, subtle Tzeentch, Lord of Lies. And so, for the very basics, let us lean on existing wisdom. To quote, "Do not ask which creature screams in the night. Do not question who awaits you in the shadow. It is my cry that wakes you in the night, and my body that crouches in the shadow. I am Tzeentch, and you are the puppet that dances to my tune." The Book of Tzeentch. Tzeentch, also known as the Changer of Ways and the Architect of Fate, is the Chaos God of change, evolution, intrigue, and sorcery. Tzeentch is especially empowered by the desire for change and ambition for advancement amongst mortals. It is he who weaves the threads that connect every action, plot, and subtle intrigue in a galaxy-wide game of manipulation and subterfuge. At the end of each of these threads lays the ensnared soul of a human puppet, those of his mortal servants and agents who believe they serve the Lord of Sorcery in mutually beneficial pacts. The truth is that Tzeentch's every action is planned with its ultimate goal as his own establishment as a preeminent chaos power in the warp. Of course, the very nature of the Lord of Entropy is such that, were he to attain this triumph, he would still strive for turmoil and change. In many ways, Tzeentch is both the best and least understood of the Dark Gods. He is god of fate, plots and schemes, as well as the god that exemplifies the ever-changing nature of the warp. However, Tzeentch does not plot towards some end, at least none that can be comprehended. He schemes simply to scheme. He is constantly building, even as his devices unravel under their own complexity. At the same time, he is a god of knowledge and comprehension, and his devotees may be those who seek a deeper understanding of an often enigmatic universe. Tzeentch is known by 100,000 titles across the galaxy, amongst them the Weaver of Destinies, the Great Conspirator, and the Architect of Fate. In his mind, he listens to the hopes of every sentient being from every planet in the galaxy. He watches over the plans of his playthings as they unfold into history, toying with fate and fortune, both for his own entertainment and to further his unfathomable schemes. Tzeentch feeds upon the need and desire for change that is an essential part of all life in the universe. All people dream of prosperity, freedom, and a better tomorrow. Those dreams are not just the preserve of the impoverished or the powerless. Even Imperial planetary governors and Imperial Navy battlefleet admirals dream of further riches, or perhaps even an end to their responsibilities to the Emperor. All these dreams create a powerful impetus for change, and the ambitions of nations create a force that can challenge history. Tzeentch is the embodiment of that force within the warp. He was the second of the Chaos Gods to come to full sentience within the warp, sometime during Old Earth's Western medieval period, in the second millennium. His birth marked the maturation of human nations and politics, with all of their implicit intrigues and double dealings. Tzeentch is not content to merely observe the fulfillment and disappointment brought by the passage of time. He has his own plans. Schemes that are so complex and closely woven that they touch the lives of every living thing, whether they realize it or not. The Chaos God's masterly comprehension of time, history, and intrigue allows his ploys to intertwine seamlessly, forming a web of causality that spans the stars. Tzeentch is aware of the visions and plans of all mortals in the galaxy. He takes great delight in the plotting and politicking of others, and favors the cunning over the strong. When the inner voice in a man's head speaks, when the desperate whisper their prayers into the night, it is the Architect of Fate that listens. He perceives every event and intention, and from this information, his mighty mind can work out how each will influence the future. The intertwining lattice work of probability, hope, and change is Tzeentch's meat and drink. Without it, he will eventually fade away. Perhaps the Architect of Fate has plans to overthrow the other Chaos Gods, or to extend his dominion over all mortal realms. Perhaps not even Tzeentch himself can say for sure. Whatever his ultimate goal, he seeks to achieve it by manipulating the individuals of humans and Xenos alike. By offering the power of knowledge and sorcery, he can recruit influential Chaos warlords and magi to his cause, affecting the lives of many more at a single stroke. However, few of Tzeentch's plans are ever simple. Some span eons with their complexity, while many appear contradictory to others, or even against his own interests. Only Tzeentch can see the threads of potential futures weaving through time, like tangled skeins of multicolored cords which themselves are made of decisions, happenstance, and fluke. Tzeentch is the undisputed master of magic in the universe, sorcery being one of the most potent agents of change, and those who use it are amongst the most ambitious and hungry for power. The raw psychic energy that empowers the psyche of the mortal realm is the actual fabric of the realm of chaos, the same fabric that makes up the chaos powers, their demon servants and the shadow cells of mortals that flicker in the warp and that mankind calls souls. The use of psychic power, or magic as it can rightly be called, is held as the ultimate expression of faith amongst Tzeentch's followers, who have much to gain from his patronage. Though it will likely cost them their immortal souls, they will at least have boundless power to show for it while they live. This is in stark contrast to the poor wretched psychers of the Imperium of Man, who, corralled by the Inquisition's black ships, are brought to terror where many of them feed the dying Emperor's boundless hunger for psychic energy. In Tzeentch's eyes, mortal creatures are immeasurably steeped in ambiguity, yet they somehow wage their personal wars completely unaware of the countless contradictions in their souls. Tzeentch cannot help but dabble in the mortal realm. Some amongst the Inquisition believe that the great conspirator is responsible for the exponential increase of psychic ability in the human race in recent millennia. His own need to manipulate and control, and his desire to increase his own power in the warp, mean Tzeentch is eternally playing the great game, waged amongst his brother Chaos Guards. The architect of fate is not about sullying his clawed hands with the bloody business of war, though he much prefers to win his battles through guile and sorcery than brute force. Consumed by his own ineffable thoughts, Tzeentch binds the galaxy in the weave of his complex schemes, just as a spider binds a fly. The skin of Tzeentch crawls with constantly changing faces, leering at and mocking onlookers as he speaks. These faces repeat his words with subtle but important differences, or provide a commentary that throws doubt upon his words. These lesser faces appear and disappear quickly, but the puckered visage of Tzeentch himself remains low down in his chest, so that head and body are one. From about Tzeentch's burning eyes spring two sweeping horns, the spiraling extremities of which crackle with arcane fire. The firmament surrounding Tzeentch is heavy with magic. It weaves like liquid smoke about his head, forming subtle and interwoven patterns. Forms of places and people appear in the smoke as Tzeentch contemplates their fate. Those who appear will inevitably find their minds, bodies, or destinies mutating into strange new forms, for none can come to Tzeentch's attention and remain untouched. Tzeentch exerts his influence in the mortal realm through subtle manipulation and devious ploys. The victims of his corruption are sorcerers drawn by the promise of forbidden knowledge, scholars who seek knowledge at all costs, politicians lured by the power knowledge provides to outmaneuver their foes. Tzeentch's sacred number is 9. His colors are typically seen as blue and gold, but an ever-changing rainbow of color is more appropriate as well, given that he is the Lord of Change. That was the basic lore of Tzeentch. But, as I have stated before in previous entries, I believe that they, the Dark Gods of Chaos, had their origin in the 40k universe, for they existed from the dawn of time in the world that was, and when one exists in the warp, one has always existed. So as soon as they are birthed in the 40k setting, they then transcend time and space, and exist in all sections of the warp. For it is only in the 40k setting that a date, or approximate one at least, is given for its very birth. And it is the warp that is a binding element betwixt all settings. So as soon as they exist, they did so from the dawn of time in the fantasy setting, and were present from its birth. So strangely, I believe that the 40k setting predates the fantasy. Ironic, when one looks at the releases of the games, of course, but I digress. Now we have looked at the realm of each god of chaos as it is presented in the warp, so let us now discuss the realm of the sorcerer, and at its heart, his impossible fortress. To quote, "Just as Tzeentch manifests and appears in many different guises, many of them fluid and shifting, so too the domain of the changer of ways within the realm of chaos constantly adapts to its master's whims, desires, moods, and of course, the demands of his 1001 plots. Observers, human, xenos, and demon, perceive and interpret this territory in a wide variety of ways. In fact, some scholars, and a few of the more coherent first-hand witnesses who have survived contact with Tzeentch's realm, have suggested that neither mortal nor demon, save perhaps the most powerful lords of change, can grasp the true nature of Tzeentch's shifting realm. Most who visit the domain of the great mutator quickly go mad. Those of exceptionally strong mind and will can perhaps interpret but one facet of the often crystalline landscape that, like Tzeentch himself, has an infinite number of faces. Many commentators suggest that the mortal mind can only perceive the world of the warp energy, wrought into something resembling solid form through symbols or metaphors, images created by the mind of the iron-willed in an attempt to make sense of pure chaos and constant change. In fact, many commentators rely on paradoxical metaphors even to describe the process of perceiving Tzeentch's realm itself. Sculpting with fog, describing a dream as it occurs, singing silently, painting with mist, and the like. The great ocean of the warp is a sea of madness and insanity, and Tzeentch's realm is the concentrated essence of such things given form. In spite of the constantly changing nature of the domain of the architect of fate, and the limited capacity of the mortal mind to perceive and comprehend it, certain common views have emerged from the extant descriptions of Tzeentch's realm. Some observers claim that an enormous crystalline labyrinth dominates the landscape, a luminescent plane shimmering like a polished, mottled opal. Passages in this maze appear, dissolve, merge, split, and change direction seemingly at random. Only the Lords of Change, Tzeentch's most powerful servants, and those with the trenchant insights of the irrevocably mad, can hope to understand the designs of Tzeentch's deranged maze and to navigate its corridors. No demons are needed to act as sentinels in Tzeentch's realm. The labyrinth itself provides sufficient protection against anyone rash and foolhardy enough to attempt an assault on the great schemer. Those who gaze into the crystalline substance that comprises this maze may see more than light reflected and refracted in the fluctuating facets of the shining surfaces. They may catch glimpses of fears, miseries, and hopes made visually manifest, dreams and nightmares, histories real and imagined, potential futures, images of torture, ecstasy, and despair, and abstract thoughts made momentarily concrete as pictures in the crystals. One visionary reported seeing various images of his children at different points in their lives, all of them moments of despair, sorrow, and desperation. Another recounted her experiences in Tzeentch's realm as one of exaltation and ecstasy, as she witnessed reflected representations of what she took to be her possible futures, each more joyful and successful than the last. Yet another claimed to observe nightmare imagery in the mirrored surface of the labyrinth, demons rending flesh from friends and loved ones, the destruction of his home by dark sorcerers wielding warp fire, and worst of all, the transformation of his own body into a tentacled writhing mass. When this last traveller was finally able to tear his gaze away from the hellish visions, he discovered that days had passed, and that his body had indeed changed into a hideous chaos spawn he had seen in his vision. Imperial records show that all three of these individuals met with tragic ends: suicide, insanity, and execution at the hands of the Inquisition, respectively. In one sense, these survivors of Tzeentch's realm were fortunate, as it is rumoured that most who travel through the maze of the Raven Guard wander it eternally as miserable, insane shells of their former selves, forever tormented by ghastly visions, regrets over their mistakes and missed opportunities, and the hopes for a tomorrow that will never realize. Whilst the passage of time in the warp fluctuates and does not correspond to its regular linear flow in the normal four-dimensional space-time of the materium, the inconsistency of time's progression is even more pronounced in Tzeentch's realm. As anecdote above suggests, in what seems like a few solar minutes spent gazing into the depths of the crystals of Tzeentch's labyrinthine realm, days or even standard years can pass. Two individuals might enter Tzeentch's realm in the same instant in time. One might exit moments later and report that years had passed, whereas the other could spend centuries of real time in Tzeentch's realm, but swear that he had been gone only minutes. In addition, other peculiarities in individual subject perceptions of time occur within Tzeentch's realm itself. A single footstep may take hours to complete. What seems like a few seconds spent admiring the beautiful refraction of light on the crystalline structure of the maze can take days. Legends tell of an entity known as the Guardian of the Maze that inhabits the crystalline labyrinth. Though his name implies that he serves as the protector of Tzeentch's realm, he is said to function more as a gatekeeper and observer. Rumours tell of a path through Tzeentch's realm that, in theory, anyone, mortal or demon, may follow to discover infinite knowledge. To follow this path, the inquisitive pilgrim must travel through 9 gates. These portals, 3 times the height of a man, appear as golden arches wreathed in the black and pink warp fire of Tzeentch. Such is the power of the Guardians of the Maze, or perhaps it is the bizarre temporal nature of Tzeentch's twisted realm itself, that the Guardian manifests as a giant disembodied mouth hovering above all 9 gates simultaneously. At each gate, the mouth ponderously speaks, asking those seekers of knowledge one of the 999 riddles of Zaratzoth. Those who answer the riddles correctly may pass through the gates and continue along the path to ultimate enlightenment. Those who fail to answer correctly are doomed to wander the labyrinth for all eternity, racked with insanity and regret over the infinite knowledge that might have been theirs. Legend tells of one being, the only one in all history, who answered all 9 of the questions correctly. Strangely, many versions of the story posit that this individual appeared in the guise of a young girl, who was accompanied by a small black dog. Factions within the Ordo Malleus waged vicious scholarly battles over the hidden significance of this tale, or if the tale actually happened, or was yet another metaphorical wisp of smoke from the Master of Lies. The Impossible Fortress. Tzeentch's Sanctum Sanctorum, the Impossible Fortress, is said to lie at the center of the crystalline maze, if indeed geographical descriptions such as center apply with any accuracy to this inconstant realm. Some consider this as more akin to a central belief or conceit that might drive a series of thoughts than an actual location, as none of this area has physicality as mortals would comprehend it. With this etheric edifice in constant flux, many have described it as a crystalline castle, composed of the same sort of material as the labyrinth that surrounds it. Imbalanced spires spontaneously emerge from the ever-shifting foundations of the impossible fortress, as do towers of blue and pink flame and searing warp fire. Gates, doors and portals slowly open, as if yawning with the ennui of ages, only to slam shut like mouths of terrible beasts and then disappear. Mortals shackled by the psychological manacles forged by a lifetime of habit and enculturation in the material realm cannot fathom the perverse design of Tzeentch's home. Indeed, as the name of this vastness implies, even the most visionary and heretical designers of the material realm could not draft plans for the maddening architecture of the impossible fortress. Few demons, save the most powerful Lords of Change can navigate its corridors at all. But as these creatures are intelligent distillations of the madness that makes up Tzeentch's realm, they thrive all the same. Deep inside the impossible fortress, according to some profane accounts, lies Tzeentch's fabled hidden library. This infinite collection of tomes, scrolls, and parchments of every kind contains every scrap of knowledge or thought ever recorded in creation. Stories written and unwritten, histories true and alternate, and accounts of futures potential, actual, and imagined. Many of the volumes are so weighty with knowledge that they gain a sentience of a kind, and spend centuries chattering to passers-by, arguing with one another, rewriting themselves, and then reorganizing their placement accordingly. Magical chains of warp fire help to protect the books and bind them in place. Horrors serve as grotesque librarians and work tirelessly to reshelve the works, catalogue the collection, and maintain what passes for order in the impossible fortress. Though as the concept itself is anathema to the great mutator, no mortal could possibly fathom such a design. As with so many things associated with the Changer of Ways, few things are always as they seem. Although the crystal maze, the impossible fortress, and the hidden library often appear, or at least are often perceived, as delineated above, by no means are these descriptions consistent with every narrative provided by those unfortunate souls who have visited Tzeentch's domain. Others have suggested that observers interpret Tzeentch's realm subjectively, filtering their perceptions of structured warp energy through their own expectations and experiences. It may be most probable that Tzeentch himself determines how each mortal or demonic individual perceives his realm to suit the needs, whims, and conspiracies of the Master of Lies. Tzeentch's corruption. Fewer individuals and chaos cults fall to the temptations offered by Tzeentch than to the other ruinous powers, as the benefits the Lord of Sorcery offers are less tangible and immediate than the sensory pleasures of Slaanesh, the diseased immortality of Nurgle, or the bloodthirsty strength of Khorne. Instead, the worship of Tzeentch appeals most to those who value knowledge, especially secret, forbidden knowledge, and the power that it brings. Of course, the individuals most likely to be tempted into the service of Tzeentch are Psykers, who already possess the secret and feared ability to tap the limitless power of the warp to reshape reality. Tzeentch offers Psykers the knowledge required to achieve unlimited heights of psychic ability through the practice of the powerful arcane psychic techniques known to the Imperium of Man as sorcery, that can only be learned from interaction with the dark powers of the Immaterium. For many, the forbidden knowledge Tzeentch offers is just too tempting to pass up, and before they know it, they have been ensnared within the Grand Schemer's tangled webs, and find themselves as just another unwitting pawn in his chaos plots. Even non-psychers can find themselves pawns in Tzeentch's endless games of intrigue when they discover that if they make use of the heretical knowledge offered by the Chaos God, just this once, they can perhaps better their station in life, or that of their loved ones. Imperial nobles and politicians are often drawn into Tzeentch's web through the edge over their rivals he offers in the form of knowledge and the power it can provide. Yet the lower classes also provide fertile ground for the Lord of Sorcery, in a society that is as difficult and repressive as that of the Imperium. It can be all too easy to give in to the blandishments of a charismatic heretical preacher who promises salvation and prosperity if one will just agree to follow a particular path towards enlightenment. It is in just this way that countless Tzeentchian cults have begun across the galaxy. Many normally pious and good-hearted subjects of the Emperor, tired of the mindless, backbreaking labor and elite disdain that dominates life on so many imperial worlds, are easily swayed to join various mystery cults. These cults slowly draw these folk ever tighter into a web of Tzeentchian corruption, until, too late, they discover they have become the servants of chaos. Though Tzeentchian corruption is the least common form of chaos perversion found across the Imperium. It is also the most feared by the Inquisition, for its adherents are the most powerful of chaos servants, and the best at concealing both themselves and their complex schemes from the light of the Emperor. End quote. And now we come to the finale. Now, hearken to what I believe about what I am about to say. Everything is not canon, but everything is true. Or is it? The ultimate liar and the ultimate lie. Khorne is the greatest god, is he? In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. So they must be true, surely. And it has always been stated, always been affirmed by the lore, that Khorne is in fact the mightiest being in the warp. Older, stronger. But this I believe to be the ultimate lie, woven by the ultimate liar. For Tzeentch is the ultimate game player, actor, strategist, plotter, schemer, and, of course, liar. And it has been known that to have a useful frontman is always better than being sat on the target, on the throne itself. The power behind the throne I believe to be Tzeentch, and I shall explain my theory to you, for that is all it is, a theory, but an exciting one, I hope you will agree. And if Khorne is the ruling king of hell, without the ability to actually rule, he is still the target, the yardstick that will always be taken down first, permitting anyone else to see the power play of their brethren gods. They get warning. I expound. If Slaanesh were to consume the last of the Eldari and absorb their last gods, he would gain enough power to potentially strike at any, but he would choose first to strike at Khorne. When Nurgle engorges during the height of a plague span, he does strike at his adversary in seeming opposite number, Tzeentch. But this is a younger sibling pecking order situation, to be second place. If Nurgle ever gained enough lasting power to strike boldly, he would see that Khorne were destroyed first, as that would gain him the position of king, and to be undisputedly most powerful. Because they all play the game, the great game, the twisting path of warfare betwixt them, so they all dance to Tzeentch's tune really. For he, Tzeentch, is a lord of lies, the master of deception, and he gains power from it all. He lets Khorne have the most powerful of demonic servants, the most blatantly, for the bloodthirsters of Khorne are inarguably the most powerful and potent of all their kind. But is this more hiding his strength and dispersing it more? For Tzeentch has the most potent of mortal worshippers. Many will scoff at that, and point to some marine with a bronze whatever that cancels magic, and by that token they think them the mightier, because they could win in a fist fight. Laudable in a battlefield situation, but hardly the reality of ability in a lore and narrative setting. When one compares the power of the worshippers of Tzeentch, it only takes a modicum of time and a tiny dollop of imagination to see how truly terrifying they are. Imagine every nasty curse, spell, hex or divination you have ever seen in any setting. Any and all are possible in the grim darkness of the far future. And psychers of prodigious power can dominate solar systems, even pocket empires, as I hope I demonstrated in a psycher's tale. So do catch that one if you want a better explanation. From my own perspective, of course. Demons of Tzeentch make pacts of intricacy with only the best. Well, that is pushing it. For no god refuses supplication, but for their champions? Aye. Tzeentch has more power in his pawns than any of the others. As dreary as it is to fight the worshippers of Nurgle, as strange to fight those of Slaanesh, as swift and brutal as it is to confront those of Khorne, to even encounter the acolytes of Tzeentch, is to risk all. For none come out of the encounter unscathed, unchanged. He molds his enemies in sequential conflicts, encouraging the traits he wishes to be prevalent for their place in his grand scheme. If you win against the forces of Tzeentch, was it luck, skill, faith, courage, or might? Or does he wish your army to be more confident for another task, too bold to survive, or too bloated to care? One can never, ever tell. But each time his armies are confronted, his players are masked. The encounters shatter the tenuous tethers on reality and sanity that any may claim to hold most dear. Only the most disciplined minds can come through it all, but even they are in danger. For when everything one sees, everything one smells, hears, touches, all of it could be a lie. It is a rare individual who is not altered by the experience forever after. Always, forever in the shadow of their dreams are those doubts, the minuscule cracks that appear and bleed the madness into them in the one sentence, the one vision. And here it is. In actuality, am I still in that room? Replace the word room with wherever one encounters the influence of Tzeentch, and you have it. Am I still dreaming? Am I being toyed with by Tzeentch? But all of this is a roundabout way of putting things, as I wish you to see what I see when I uncover the lie. For there is only war, right? This is inarguable. So Khorne must be the most powerful of all of the gods. It is known. But is that true? Is it? In the Art of War, Sun Tzu states that it takes 7 families to support one warrior. One. How long does it take to train a warrior? To provision them? Can you see where I am going? Well, imagine this then. Every last person who plots, plans, schemes, weaves tangled webs of deception, they are all giving power unto Tzeentch. Every second of every general's projections is a supplication. Every intelligence report, written and then read. Aye, all of this is important and known. But what is not usually conceded is that every single person in this setting now has to plan, to organize, to scheme, to plot all of the time. Structure and chaos. Food has to be clawed for, aye, so Khorne gains his taste. But how much longer is the planning, training, equipping, imagining, discussing and organizing for any activity at all? Moving an army? Feeding it? Logistics for huge numbers of people? Do you plan your day? Tzeentch. Do you prioritize your workload? Tzeentch. Do you think about your responses in emails or in person? Tzeentch. Do you negotiate? Do you fill in details? Do you read projections, gamble, exchange, forecast or organize? Do you write up notes? Do you follow rules? Do you fill out spreadsheets? Do you dream? Tzeentch, 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 Tzeentch. The diplomacy of the orders, all and everything. These are all Tzeentch. And one day, when he wishes the game to end, it will end. But when I said this was the ultimate lie from the ultimate liar, that too was a lie. Tzeentch is the most dangerous of all of the gods. For the darkest truth of all is that Tzeentch is absolutely stark, staring, mad. And some of my favourite potentials of this are as follows. Tzeentch is working with the Emperor to change the dynamic of the 4 gods for change's sake. The 2 of them, the Lord of Fate and the Child Seer, the Emperor, are by far the mightiest prognosticators, schemers, and very aligned. Almost like alter egos. So is their cosmic clash a chess game? Or is it more a waltz that will see them both as the only gods remaining? Is Segara, the laughing god of the Harlequins, working with Tzeentch to destroy Slaanesh? Does Segura exist at all? While Khorne and Slaanesh fought over Caleb and Chicane, what if the Laughing God did not slip into the webway, but was dragged into a dark corner and snaffled by Tzeentch, who has been later personifying as him as another level of his game against Slaanesh? Tzeentch must have foreseen the coming of the Tyranids, the great devourer. Did that shatter his mind? He plots for its own sake, but this sounds like a god not only obsessed, the pathetic things the dark gods truly are, or is it lore that this grand voyeur, plotter and schemer had actually just given up? He potters until his end, for he is the only god of the warp, self-aware enough to realize his beginnings and foresee and understand his potential end. Has Tzeentch given up? Or is he what he always was said to be? Supposed to be. The ultimate expression of chaos and its most powerful being. But Tzeentch could very well be mad. And I think I know why. A plethora of reasons, of course. But the most important being that he is the god who has the closest interest in the materium, in the goings-on of the universe. And I think he has worked it out. And I think this is why he has lost his sanity. He knows everything, every thought. For I think Tzeentch knows he is just a reflection of our own worst elements, our evil, our bitter envy and twisted pride. But I think he also knows one more thing, that evil is always weaker than good. Tzeentch is secretly the strongest of all of the Chaos Gods, and possibly by some great margin. He is certainly the most self-aware. And he is scared of humanity. For he has lost his sanity, as he too is staring across the gulf, and in a very real way, is staring at his own creators, his own gods. Us. And we are mad. Thus, he is scared of us. He is scared of what we are becoming. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.